evening, viewers. I am Sheikh Saifur Rahman, welcoming you to our regular show, The Other Way Round. We are glad to have Ms. Lavinia here as our today's guest, and we'll talk about the creative industry, and we will know her experience in the fashion industry. She's a fashion designer, she's a jewelry designer, she's a teacher, and so on. So we know little bit about her, but she will let us know in detail, and hopefully we'll be enriched with this discussion. So good evening from Bangladesh. I think you are in Buenos Aires, the other side of the world. So good morning, very warm welcome to our show, The Other Way Around. And how are you?
Thank you so much, Saifur. I'm very, very good. It's still in the morning, almost weekend. Yeah, and I'm very happy and honored and inspired to be invited to this podcast.
Oh, thank you. And I'd like to inform you that this podcast is on our platform Design in Bangladesh. This platform or this initiative has been established by a very young and very talented designer, Rukia Ahmed Purna. So we have started recently this podcast. So we are very happy to have you here with us. So let's let's tell us about the about you, so that our viewers can know about you, your journey, and how you have started, and what pushed you to become a fashion designer.
Yeah. So actually, I'm not a fashion designer. I'm not a fashion designer. I am actually an economist.
Okay.
So from my technical background, I'm an economist, and I am specialized in the field of like business ethics and sustainability, you know. Okay. And somehow pretty early in my, let's call it work life or work career, I somehow ended up in the fashion industry, but more by accident, you know. In my case, I must admit, it was not like, oh, I'm really into fashion, I want to be a designer, or I want to be, you know, I want to work in that industry. My intention was more to understand the injustices of the world, you know, and how the world works, and why the world or certain industries are in crisis. And that's how I ended up in the fashion industry, because pretty quickly I realized that the fashion industry, like the industry, right, is like a mirror of everything what is going wrong in the world, you know. In terms of exploitative labor, in terms of, you know, overshooting planetary boundaries, in terms of, yeah, all of these things. And that's how I ended up. So, yeah, I'm really sorry that eventually today I might not be able to give hints or recommendations or certain, you know, or a motivational talk in the realm of fashion design, but I'm very creative in other realms.
Yeah.
Of the
But before jumping into all these points, all these subjects, I just want to know about you, that I have seen that you are born in probably in Italy, in the area of Tuscany.
No, I'm German.
Oh, you're German. Oh.
Yes, I've got an Italian name, but I'm like super German.
Okay.
Like from both German parents, yeah. But I've got an Italian name, so a lot of people think I'm Italian. Yeah.
So you were born in Germany?
Yes.
Okay. And then your parent moved to Italy?
No, either. I've never lived in Italy.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I would like to live in Italy if you have a house, or if you want to invite me to a nice house in Tuscany, I go.
Anyway, but being an economist, how do you see the global fashion industry?
Well, I see the global fashion industry very exploitative, but that's obviously due to colonial legacies, right? And a history of colonization. And yeah, and deep entrenched colonial law, or how I always tend to say, it's like that, you know, colonialism is woven into every seam of this industry, you know, and global supply chains. And yeah, that's how I mostly see the industry. In very, very, very rare cases, I am able like to open my eyes, open my heart, and ignore, you know, all the historical injustices and all the injustices basically in making a garment. It's really, 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 really hard for me.
So
Yeah, to only see a fashion piece because it's nice, you know, I can't.
So, as I know that you are an avid advocate of the fashion justice. So, how do you term this word, the fashion justice?
So I think it took me a while to understand that justice is more than sustainability, right? And that justice is what we actually need, but we are all misusing, you know, transparency all the time in our industry. So for me, justice basically means everything around restoration, reparations, and land back, you know? So in order to implement certain, or in order to reach, you know, a just industry or justice within the fashion industry, I do believe that the whole sustainability movement in the whole world needs to go deeper. And it's not enough to only, you know, start producing in a more ecological or more social way right now. It's about giving land back, you know. It's about repairing, you know, what has been broken, and so on and so forth. I don't know if this is too, you know, philosophical, but yeah, that's how I understand a just fashion industry, or how I imagine.
You are also really you are also involved in fashion revolution. So, what do you think that how fashion industry will cope with the future in the context of global warming and the climate change, and at the same time there was a skill labor issue because in the world, in the third world, like in Bangladesh or in India, in China, in Vietnam, there are a lot of people working with the ready-made garment industry. So how sustainability, the slow fashion movement, on the other hand, the fast fashion movement, how there will be a compromise on this industry?
Yeah. That's a very complex question to a very complex problem with very complex solutions. But I do believe a couple of solutions are already there. So first of all, I'm not very optimistic, I must admit. I'm not very optimistic with regards to the current system and how we do fashion and how the industry works, right? Then I am a big advocate of the so-called degrowth movement, you know, so I am totally convinced that especially the global north, you know, countries like Germany, Italy, Europe, the United States, and so on and so forth, we need to reduce our consumption, like very, very, very radically. But I also am convinced that degrowth doesn't mean degrowth for the global south. It doesn't mean degrowth for Bangladesh, you know?
Right.
With all the historical injustices, you know, that's not okay. So I think, I hope, I see some hope, or I feel some hope in the concept of degrowth, you know? But degrowth, again, involves paying restoration and reparation. So the global north has to pay for what we've done in the past.
Right.
That's my belief. Then secondly, I see a lot of potential, and I also see so many motivated young people in countries, in production countries like India and Bangladesh, I mean, really. I mean, I've been last time in Bangladesh, it was in November 2022, and I've been to India right now in December. And it's like, I'm always amazed by the energy, you know, and the motivation of the people. You know, it's not only going on the streets and there's a lot of rumble, but it's like really folks want to move things. They want to progress. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And my only little hope is that they do it on their own terms, you know, on their own cultural intersectional terms, not, you know, looking or keep on looking, you know, to Europe, how we are doing it, you know, or the gringos, you know, the United States. So I do see a lot of hope over there. But then obviously we are in this difficult detrimental situation that somehow our economies do all intersect, right? And we depend on each other. And yeah, and with regard to that, I really, really, really hope that Europe somehow learns to implement juster and more fair trade agreements, because we all know that certain, you know, trade agreements can actually destroy a whole industry, and have been or have destroyed certain industry streams in the past. Yeah. Does it make sense to you, what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, sure. Yes,
Good.
of course. Yes. And as I have known that few buyers agreed to pay more in this context, maybe. But what was your experience traveling to Bangladesh in 2022? That was your first time you came to Bangladesh, or you frequently travel to Bangladesh?
No, it was not the first time. It was like the fourth or fifth time, and I think the first time I came to Bangladesh was in 2012, I guess. Yeah, more than 10 years. No, as I said before, like every time I go, like I'm really, really, really amazed by the energy and, you know, the speed and and the motivation folks have, you know, and especially, you know, coming out of the pandemic where, you know, everybody was like really struggling and the industry was really struggling. And I mean, we know it's a fact, and we know the facts and figures, and you know, how many orders have not been paid, and how, you know, not only suppliers or the whole industry, even industry associations were like really, really, really struggling. So yes, I think what I saw was mostly positive, because you guys, you know, you have this drive, you know, and you just keep on doing forward. And yeah, I think that's just beautiful. Obviously, the negative connotations or the negative sides I am seeing are mostly tied to unjust business relationships.
Right.
And an economic system which just doesn't serve life. It serves a couple of CEOs and a couple of boards, you know, and that's obviously something, yeah, what bothers me, but what also bothers you, right? So I think the improvements I have come to recognize in Bangladesh, because there are a couple of things which have improved much more over the last years, right? Like in terms of health and safety, like building, you know, building safety and all of that, production efficiency, and so on and so forth. But that was reached by Bangladeshis themselves, you know? The human rights movement or the European sustainability movement or the US American sustainability movement sometimes claims, you know, that they have been the big supporters or investors or whatever. But if I have a look at the numbers and if I talk to folks on the ground, it's no, you yourself made it. So that was very positive, but I am not really convinced, and I'm really very worried about future negotiations, or even the negotiations right now. I mean, with everything what's going on in Bangladesh regarding the minimum wage discussions, it's just like the European and US brands like just shut their mouths and don't say anything. And I'm really, really, really sorry. So what I have been reading about, there are certain buyers who accept higher prices.
Yes.
Come on. I mean, pay the true cost, reduce your margin,
Right.
This is the way. I mean, how dare you in 2024 do not pay the true cost for a product, made by hand in a supposed to be, good business relationship. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Have you ever tried Bangladeshi food? And do you
Yes,
like
of
that?
course. Yes. I like it. I like everything.
Do you have any plan to come again to Bangladesh?
I deeply hope so. I know I have definitely planned to come to India this year because I've got a project over there, and I'm definitely trying to step by. Yeah, to visit some friends, and reconnect with my network over there. And and I don't know the country so well, because I've always been traveling for work, so I only know Dhaka, and Cox's Bazar.
Right. And do you like Cox's Bazar, the sea beach and the sea?
Yes. It was it was fascinating for me. Because before going there, I actually didn't know that, Bangladesh had the longest beach, in whole Asia. And I was really curious how Bangladeshis do vacation,
Yes.
like how is like a day during their vacation, what do they eat, what activities do they do,
Yes.
how do they go to the beach, because that's different, how you enjoy the beach in comparison to, we Europeans do it. So I really loved it. And the food, I mean, fish, so good.
Yeah. Do you like fish, Bangladeshi fish?
Yeah, I actually over here, well, not over here. Right now I'm in South America, but actually in Germany and Europe, I sometimes struggle with seafood and fish, but maybe it has to do with the way we prepare it. But whenever I'm in Asia, I really like fish and seafood, because of the good sauces, and it's like really well spiced, and I like it.
Okay, so how we can build up the movement of fashion justice all over the world, especially in the third world, or we can what we say global south.
Yeah, like your podcast, and this issue is called The Other Way Round.
Yeah.
And I mean this literally, the other way round. So basically, folks like me, or like my European and US American or Global North colleagues, we need to shut our mouth, and we need to take a step back. And we need to learn to actively listen, and then we might start fresh, and at least from my experience nowadays, I'm talking now a little bit more about, like the business side and the technical business side, like implementing sustainable, whatever that means, and transparent supply chains, going into business relationships, and so on and so forth in the fashion industry. At least from my perspective and what I saw and learned over the last years, the landscape has totally changed, and suppliers really are the people who are at the heart of innovation, and in general know what's going on, know what's trendy, and know how to implement new technologies and innovation, and so on and so forth. So I do believe we need to focus more on the supply chain, and we need to actively listen to the supply chain. And by that, I also mean the design of fashion, right? Or like the creative part. And I would really, really, really like to see compensation for the stealing and robbery of certain traditional,
Yes.
textile manufacturing techniques and designs over the last years. I mean, in the case of Bangladesh, Jamdani,
Yes.
and all those other stuffs. Touching the point of cultural appropriation. I mean, we Europeans and the whole fashion industry, it's like basically 90% or even more is like highly unethical cultural appropriation, right?
Right.
And nobody gets compensated, from where the fabric or the pattern or whatever comes from. So I would really like to see that. Yeah. And I think that's possible.
Actually, fashion industry is a big thing, but how we can involve our designers here, and to listen them or to involve them in favor of this justice, or make them understand, or make them we can request them to follow, or take them in their practices.
Yeah. I think with regard to that, we collectively need to do some campaigning. We collectively need to hold our hands and need to do precisely some campaigning. And this might be a little uncomfortable, because it's a lot about self-branding and so on and so forth. But I think we need to go into universities. We need to start talking to journalists and so on and so forth. And we need to make them clear that designers from the global south, have eventually the same education or even a better education, because they are at the heart of the industry,
Right.
Somebody studying fashion design in Bangladesh is much quicker, on the factory floor, testing, the pattern or whatever, than somebody sitting, in concrete office in London,
Right.
very far away from the actual manufacturing. And I think with regard to that, there's still a big bias, That's at least what I observe, the fashion world. And I'm not only talking about Milan, Paris, New York, I'm also talking about the industry and like normal fashion brands, like our whole
Retail
industry.
brands, basically.
Exactly.
Retail brands, yeah.
I think they still have this biased perception of education in Europe is much better, and that folks from the global south are not, skilled enough. And that happens in all fields, not only in fashion design, that also happens in the technical parts or even in academia. Right. So I think we have to fight that. And I mean, fights are always exhausting, but I think we need to do that. And I mean, one very beautiful example is, that collaboration of I actually don't know how to spell this properly in German, but of EKN and Rokaya,
Yeah, yes, Ekin and Rokaya. Like she is basically established this design in Bangladesh platform where we are just doing this podcast. So she designed in Bangladesh and produced in Europe, just other way around.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, no, really nice. I think more of these, small wins or projects, need to be happening, and we need to do a little campaigning and the good kind of propaganda, around this. Yeah.
But
and
actually,
then obviously
who will bail the cat? Can Fashion Revolution will do that?
Like the institution Fashion Revolution?
Yeah, for the fashion justice, establishing fashion justice, involving designers all over the world, and also bridging the gaps between the fashion designers and the other skilled people in the fashion industry, and speak about their rights and all that, sustainability, climate change, and everything.
I don't think they can do that. No, I think they're really good at, creating some awareness, but although they have revolution in their name, they're not so revolutionary. A revolution is about shifting power.
Yeah.
And this topic is also about power. But I refer to power in the good sense, I refer to power in order to implement or install or change our way of life and change our relationships on the basis of love and justice. I'm talking about that kind of power, right? And I don't think that fashion revolution, with a very good campaigning, because it's a campaigning, for end consumers, and they are doing an awesome job. But I don't think that, who made my clothes?
Right.
Will change,
Right.
the detrimental structures, of the fashion industry. I think we all need to do that. I think there need to be activists, at every stage of the fashion supply chain and the fashion industry. And I do believe that we all need to become more political in case we have the energy and in case we can do this. Because I also know that in some cases, being political or becoming politically active is very risky.
Right.
Right.
That is also very risky.
It is. I mean, I know some folks who are like active in the political field, also in Bangladesh or in Germany, and they have faced, prison charges or are in prison, death threats, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So political activism in order to change or revolutionize, or disrupt or dismantle the existing fashion system. It's gonna be a tough ride, I think, but that's why it's so important, to do it collectively.
Right. So as I know that you do consulting about different things, maybe that is also sustainability, ethics, and anti-greenwashing in the fashion. So can you explain this anti-greenwashing? It is actually a new word, maybe, to our industry.
So first of all, I mean, greenwashing, I tend to have a pretty, broad definition of greenwashing. So basically, greenwashing is how mostly the private sector corporations and or fashion brands in the realm of the fashion industry just communicate corporate lies, in order to present a product or a service or the whole fashion brand to be sustainable. That's greenwashing. And and I really like, and I think I'm okay and good at dissecting, these corporate lies. So if somebody, markets, I don't know, a t-shirt or, I don't know, a shoe to be eco-friendly or green, or, I don't know, having like a reduced water footprint, I'm able to have a pretty quick look at the evidence, at the data, and then I can tell you, this is greenwashing. Stop lying around. Do your work. And that's what I'm mostly doing nowadays. And I'm really, really, really happy because I'm in the privileged situation, to get paid for that. Because obviously that's also a risk for companies, right? Because in Europe and also in other parts of the world, there's new regulations coming up. And in the future, companies are getting fined, for greenwashing. And also, and this might interest you, I'm also like diving more into the realm of greenwashing with regard to social justice, and the whole, fair and social narratives in our industry. And I'm also, because I'm on a quest, to learning and unlearning and how to understand like decoloniality in the fashion industry. So I'm also dissecting a lot of so-called global South shaming, within marketing. So imagine, and that's really, really awful. In Europe, there's companies who start a marketing campaign promoting their sustainable clothing, and they are saying stuff like, this t-shirt, or if this t-shirt would have been made in India or Bangladesh, you know, it would cost XY less, or it would involve I don't know, forced labor or something like that. So that's what's happening, and that's what's happening in the world of marketing and in the world of sustainability. And you can see that there's a lot of still hegemony, you know, in the heads and in the thinking of most European folks, you know, and the whole fashion world. So yeah, that's also, I'm on a mission to dissect that and tell folks, dude, you cannot say that. That's racist. That's xenophobic. What do you think you're saying there? Have you ever been to Bangladesh? How do you know? You know, I'm doing
So
that.
how many levels so far has taken your consultancy in terms of brands, or I say?
Yeah. So basically, just to give you like a quick overview. So after university, I worked 8 years in consultancy. 8 years, and I consulted a lot of different fashion brands and also retailers, and I'm also an accredited auditor, you know, and a compliance officer, and blah 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 blah. So I've been traveling the world, you know, going into factories, doing assessments, blah 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 blah. I don't do that anymore because I realized that this is pretty colonial, you know, me going to India, Bangladesh, marching through the factory, you know, and telling folks, you know, what to do.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing it anymore. And afterwards, I was the head of sustainability, corporate responsibility of a German fashion brand, the German sustainable fashion brand. And afterwards, I quit. And now, since 2 years, I'm self-employed. And I do some consultancy, but for very well selected companies, like really fashion brands or shoe companies who have a deep sense, you know, for justice, for intersectionality, for degrowth. And I can tell you there are not a lot. So I do not.
So
I
do you
not
think
have
that normal retailers welcome you?
No, I am contacted by normal retailers, but I'm also, I must admit, I am very idealistic. So it depends. Like sometimes we do start talking, but then we like already, you know, crash. And in a lot of cases, I'm too radical.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm open, obviously, you know, but I really, really, really only wish to work. And I'm in the privileged situation that I can do this, right? That's also, I'm very, very, very aware of that. So there might be, you know, eventually in a couple of months or years, eventually I reach a moment in my life where I'm in an economic tight situation. And like financially, it's not going well. And then I might, obviously, because of money, you know, because we all need to survive, I might work for a big bad company. So I'm doing that. And then I'm also doing a lot of lecturing at universities regarding business ethics, regarding sustainable supply chains, regarding colonialism and like anti-colonialism and decolonization of the fashion industry. And I'm doing a little bit of politics now. I'm actually representing civil society in Germany. There's a partnership for sustainable textiles from the government. So I'm fighting with the private sector.
So now you have experience of Asian experience, and you have European experience, you have Latin American experience. So
North African experience, exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
American.
So Latin American and also Asian, they are also global South. So what differences and what similarities do you find in Latin American fashion industry and also in Bangladesh Indian fashion industry?
The difference in between like Asia and South America?
Yeah. Or similarity, both, but differences and similarities, both.
I think there's not much differences when we talk about the technical aspects of the industry, right? The only difference is that the South American or the South American or Latin American continent, there's more US American supply chains, or more business with the United States. For example, Brazil, Peru, Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, they're mostly producing for the US. And Asia, I sense, is producing for everybody. But I feel like there's a little more relationship to Europe. But at the end of the day, I mean, if we have a look at the negative connotations with regard to exploitative labor, forced labor, environmental degradation, there's no differences, that goes on over here. Obviously, I mean, we also talk about ex-colonized countries. We also talk about detrimental business relationships. We also talk about certain neoliberal free trade zones, the US and Europe is, gaining from. So this is very, 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 very similar. On the other hand, I also over here feel this energy and movement, of like liberating, from the former oppressors. But obviously it's difficult in business terms, right? So also folks over here, as well as folks in India, Bangladesh, or Pakistan, are very aware of the economic dependence, they have with and to the European and US fashion industry and market. But there is a sense for fight, and it's really, really nice nice to hear that. And there's also a sense for looking for solutions, or looking for local and hyper-local solutions. And I think that's good, because the solutions are already there in a lot of cases. It's more that we don't understand the problems properly, in my belief.
I have come across an interesting thing that you have started a class called Mistress Class. What is that?
Yeah, Mrs. So basically, when I started working freelance and being self-employed, and as I told you before, I'm like very idealistic, I ended up giving free interviews at least like 5 to 6 hours per week, because I really want to support, young people or folks, who are looking for solutions or trying to understand this whole world of, sustainability, in fashion better. And then I realized, no, you're now self-employed. You really need to implement a proper time management. And you need to make some money, because otherwise you're not going to be self-employed anymore,
Right.
And then I created this open Zoom call, so basically it's 1 hour every Friday, which is 2 p.m. CET, Central European Time. And I think in Bangladesh that's 6 or 7 p.m., I guess. I'm not sure. I think 7 p.m. And so it's like an open Zoom call, and everybody can come in, and ask questions, or if he or she or they have a query or just want to talk to me. So I'm always there. And I obviously called it Mistress Class, because master class, has this connotation to a certain, relationship of a slave owner and a slave, the master and the slave.
Oh.
And it's a masculine word. And I do believe that almost nobody has mastered anything, And I'm a woman, so.
Very interesting.
That's why I called it Open Mistress Class.
How actually we are talking about bigger industry or fashion industry, or we can say RMG or ready-made garment or retail industry. But in case of the local fashion industry in Bangladesh, where young designers or the designers are working in of his or her own, is a small scale, how do they learn these things, these fashion industries or the revolution or the sustainability or greenwashing, everything, how can they learn it, or how can you help them to do that? Or is there
I
any
don't even
scope
know
of
if they
coming
need
in
my help.
Bangladesh
I
and
don't think
help
they
them
need
to?
my help. I don't think they need my help. I mean, there's so many cool, young, fresh and bold artists in Bangladesh, When I was in November 2022, I was like so amazed because you've got so many creative people, and there are folks, doing like really, really, really cool stuff, and like bringing in a mixture of like traditional, craftsmanship and womanship, combining it, with like more modern trends. So I don't think nobody needs my help over there. I mean, I'm very happy because
So
I love you
you
guys.
can guide
Very
them.
happy to be there.
Yeah, of course, but you can suggest them, you can advise them at least, yeah, how they can not.
Yes, and I can support them and tell them I'm there in case you need any kind of support, up there, but I'm like in the back, supporting you. Or eventually I can be there, like opening a way or a space of, bringing this information, and like campaigning to Europe or the US, I can do that, I can facilitate, obviously, with that. And apart from that, I would really like to, like motivate them so that, they know and realize, and I think they do. But sometimes, an additional push always helps, that there's a lot of potential and creativity in Bangladesh itself, and that they do not need to look towards Europe, because really, who wants to be like Europeans? We are like the worst. I mean, we're like really bad people, And the only reason is we have like a more or less stable, I don't know, economically stable continent, politically not. You see what's going on now, is, years, hundreds of years of oppression and colonization and robbing and stealing, and hegemony. So please, you don't. I hope you don't want to be like us Europeans, because we are the worst. And we also don't have so much style. I mean, as I said before, I don't have a sense for fashion or aesthetics, I must admit. I'm really sorry to admit that.
No.
I like whenever I'm in Asia, or it's like, you go on the streets and, and you see the saris, you see the fabrics, you see the colors, there's so much style, and beauty and aesthetics, on the streets, in the villages, wherever you go. We don't have that in Europe. In Europe, it's basically, or mostly in the Western world, fashion is very classist. I mean, fashion is classist wherever we go.
Yeah.
But it's really very classist over here to basically dress well in the sense of nice. You really need to have a lot of money.
Right.
So, yeah, please. I don't think anybody wants to be like the European or the Western fashion world. No.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us and giving us all your insights, and we are really appreciate your presence, and we have known so many things, and I am very hopeful that our viewers will they'll be enriched with your with this discussion and what you have said, and they will be inspired about these things, because fashion is not only the glitz and glamour, but fashion is also
it's the contrary,
be a place
actually. Sorry.
there should be a balance, and there will be no exploitation and anything, and there will be free and fair and everything. So what is your movement? That will be everybody's movement, I hope. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, it was a pleasure.
See you in Bangladesh in some time.